If you want to make your relationships better, the first place to start is with empathy, not expectation. Most of us walk into relationships with a silent checklist. We expect people to read our minds, to meet our needs, to behave in a way that matches our idea of how things should be. But great relationships aren't built on expectations. They're built on understanding. When we stop asking, why aren't you giving me what I want? And instead ask, what are you going through right now? That's when connection begins. Too often we mistake grand gestures for real commitment. We believe that love is in the flowers, the gifts, the surprises. But the truth is, it's the small, consistent things that build trust. It's remembering how they take their coffee. It's checking in after a long day. It's showing up when it's inconvenient. Trust isn't built in a moment. It's built over time, in repetition, in consistency. And let's not avoid the hard conversations. So many relationships fall apart because people are afraid to speak the truth. But honesty, spoken with kindness, is the most powerful tool we have. The hard conversations are the ones that create clarity, and clarity is kindness. When you're willing to sit down and say, this hurt me, or I need your help, or even I don't know what to do, you give the relationship a chance to grow. Silence, resentment, avoidance, those things destroy more than any fight ever could. To build a great relationship, you also have to understand yourself. What do you value? What matters to you? What kind of partner do you want to be? Because if you don't know who you are, you'll either try to become what someone else wants or expect them to complete you. And neither of those paths lead to something lasting. When you walk into a relationship with clarity about your why, you offer something powerful, direction. Shared direction leads to alignment, and alignment leads to strength. Every day you make deposits or withdrawals in your relationship. You might not notice them, but they're happening. A compliment, a thank you, a moment of patience, that's a deposit. A sharp word, a forgotten promise, a selfish choice, that's a withdrawal. The health of the relationship depends on the balance in that emotional bank account. Are you giving more than you're taking? Are you building up or slowly draining? Finally, remember that relationships are either growing or fading. There is no standing still. If you want it to thrive, you have to feed it. With time, with effort, with curiosity. You have to keep learning about each other, keep dreaming together, keep choosing each other even when it's hard. Because the truth is, people don't grow apart, they stop growing together. Most people walk into relationships with a silent list of expectations. We expect to be understood, appreciated, and loved in the way we imagine love should look. We want the other person to instinctively know how to support us, how to handle our moods, how to make us feel secure. But here's the uncomfortable truth. Expectations are not connection. In fact, expectations, especially when unspoken, often become walls that block genuine connection. Real connection doesn't begin with what can I get? It begins with what can I understand? Empathy is the ability to put yourself in someone else's shoes, to try and see the world through their eyes without needing to fix, judge, or change them. When we replace our expectations with empathy, everything in the relationship begins to shift. We stop assuming and start being curious. And in that shift, we create the emotional safety that every relationship needs to thrive. Let's say your partner comes home in a bad mood. The expectation mindset might say, they should still be kind to me. They should talk to me about their day. They shouldn't take their stress out on me. But the empathy mindset says, something must have gone wrong today. I wonder what they're dealing with. How can I be supportive without taking it personally? See the difference? One mindset fuels resentment. The other invites connection. Empathy is not about agreeing with everything. It's not about being passive or letting others treat you poorly. It's about choosing to understand before you react. When someone forgets to call, doesn't respond the way you hoped, or makes a mistake, empathy asks, what might they be going through, instead of immediately going to, they don't care about me. This change in perspective doesn't just help the other person feel seen and heard, it actually makes you stronger. It helps you regulate your emotions. It helps you respond instead of react. It helps you stay grounded in love, not fear. And that's what real emotional maturity looks like. Relationships aren't a transaction where both parties are constantly measuring what they're getting. They're a partnership where both people are committed to understanding each other, even when it's difficult. Empathy also creates the kind of space where vulnerability can exist. When someone feels judged, they shut down. When they feel like they're constantly falling short of someone else's expectations, they withdraw. But when they feel understood, when they feel safe, they begin to open up. They begin to trust. And trust is the oxygen of a healthy relationship. This doesn't just apply to romantic relationships. It applies to friendships, family, colleagues, any meaningful human connection. Imagine how much deeper our relationships would be if we approached every interaction with curiosity rather than assumption. If we said, help me understand, instead of why aren't you doing it my way? Empathy takes practice. It takes humility. It means accepting that you don't always have the full story and being okay with that. It means letting go of the need to be right and choosing instead to be kind. But when you do this, when you consistently lead with empathy, you give your relationship a chance to become something deeper, something more honest, something truly lasting. So if you want to make your relationships better, start with this. Stop expecting and start understanding. Because in that space where empathy lives, love has room to grow. When people think about improving their relationships, they often imagine dramatic moments, romantic getaways, surprise gifts, grand apologies. And while those gestures can be beautiful, they're not what makes a relationship strong. What truly builds trust isn't found in the big, impressive actions. It's found in the quiet, consistent ones, the daily check-ins, the follow-through on promises, the way someone shows up for you again and again without needing applause. Trust isn't built in a single day. It's built in the small moments that most people overlook. When you say you'll call and you do. When you remember something important to the other person, even when they didn't ask you to. When you consistently speak with kindness, even during hard conversations. These are the moments that communicate you matter. You can count on me. And over time, they lay the foundation for something solid and lasting. It's easy to be great once in a while. It's easy to be thoughtful on an anniversary or say all the right things after an argument. But true commitment shows up in the everyday, in how you handle your partner's vulnerability, in how you treat them when no one else is watching, in how you respond when things aren't exciting or fun, when real life kicks in and routine settles. Consistency is what makes someone feel emotionally safe. It removes the guesswork. It says, I know what to expect from you. And that predictability, far from being boring, is deeply comforting. Because in a world full of uncertainty, being someone's safe place is one of the most powerful gifts you can give. And that gift is only possible when your words and actions align over time. The problem is we often chase intensity instead of stability. We want to feel something big, something cinematic. But real love, real trust doesn't live in the extremes. It lives in the rhythm, the daily rhythm of choosing each other, the rhythm of effort, patience, honesty, and presence. That's where the magic happens, not in fireworks, but in the steady glow that never goes out. This doesn't mean you should never do anything grand or special. Those moments have their place too, but they should be the icing, not the cake. The core of a strong relationship is made of the repeated actions that prove you care. And the question is, will they still show up when it's not? Think about the people you trust the most. It's not because they did one amazing thing for you. It's because they've shown up for you time and time again. They've kept their word. They've been honest even when it was hard. They've supported you when you needed it most. That's what earns trust. And in relationships, trust is the glue that holds everything else together. Without consistency, love becomes uncertain. You might have chemistry, you might have passion, but without trust, you won't have stability. And stability isn't boring. It's what allows love to deepen. It's what allows vulnerability to surface, knowing it will be met with care. It's what turns attraction into partnership. So, if you want to make your relationship better, ask yourself, am I consistent? Not just in what I say, but in what I do. Do I make emotional deposits every day, not just when things are broken? Because at the end of the day, love isn't measured by how loudly we say it. It's measured by how steadily we live it. And the most trustworthy people aren't the loudest. They're the ones who show up every single time. One of the most difficult but essential parts of building a strong relationship is learning to speak the truth, even when it's uncomfortable. Most people avoid difficult conversations not because they don't care, but because they're afraid. Afraid of conflict, afraid of hurting the other person, afraid of what the truth might change. But what we don't often realize is that avoiding the truth doesn't protect the relationship, it quietly erodes it. When we hold back how we really feel, resentment begins to build. It starts small, an irritation here, a disappointment there. But over time, unspoken emotions become distance. The more we suppress, the more disconnected we become. We start walking on eggshells. We smile when we're hurting. We say it's fine when it's not. And the relationship becomes a performance instead of a partnership. Telling the truth doesn't mean being harsh. It doesn't mean dumping, emotions or attacking. It means being willing to say the real thing with kindness and clarity. It means valuing honesty over comfort. Because when you speak the truth with love, you create the opportunity for understanding, growth, and healing. You create space for real intimacy, not just surface level peace, but deep, honest connection. There's a belief that love means keeping the other person happy at all costs. But real love isn't about avoiding pain, it's about walking through it together. If something's bothering you, say it. If you're unsure about where things are going, express that. If you need something different, speak up. Your truth might be the very thing that helps the relationship evolve into something stronger. Of course, it's not always easy. Telling the truth can feel risky. It exposes you. It invites reaction. But here's the other side. When you speak the truth and your partner hears you, sees you, and responds with respect, it strengthens the bond. It builds trust because now they know you're not pretending. You're not hiding. You're showing up as your full self. It's important to remember that honesty is not about being right. It's not about winning an argument or proving a point. It's about sharing your experience, saying, this is how I feel, or this is what I need, or this is what's been on my heart. Those are not accusations. They are bridges. They help the other person see your world more clearly. When both people in a relationship are willing to speak their truth and hear the truth, something powerful happens. Communication becomes real. Conflict becomes growth. And connection becomes deeper than ever before. You stop fearing disagreement because you trust that the relationship can handle it. You stop walking on eggshells because you've built a foundation strong enough to carry truth. And yes, sometimes the truth will be hard. Sometimes it will be messy. Sometimes it will hurt. But the alternative, living in silence, pretending, slowly drifting apart, is far more painful in the long run. Truth is the beginning of alignment. It's what allows two people to truly walk side by side with nothing hidden and nothing fake. So if you want a better relationship, be brave enough to speak the truth. Not just when it's easy, but especially when it's hard. Say what needs to be said. Express what's real, because love isn't just found in harmony, it's built in honesty. And the relationships that last are not the ones without conflict. They're the ones where both people are willing to be real with each other, no matter what. In any relationship, it's easy to focus on what the other person is doing, what they're giving, what they're not giving, how they're showing up. But rarely do we pause to ask a deeper question. Why am I in this relationship? What kind of partner do I want to be? When you don't know your why, it's easy to lose direction. You begin to react instead of respond. You fall into patterns instead of making conscious choices. But when you know your why as a partner, everything changes. Your why is your purpose. It's the core belief that drives the way you love, the way you communicate, the way you show up. Without it, you may end up in relationships that look fine on the outside, but feel hollow on the inside. Or worse, you rely on the other person to define the relationship for you. That's where codependency begins. That's where insecurity grows. But when you walk in with clarity about who you are and what you're here to give, you shift from needing someone to complete you to becoming someone who adds value. Knowing your why means understanding what kind of presence you want to be in someone's life. Do you want to bring peace, growth, loyalty, adventure, support? It doesn't mean being perfect, it means being intentional. If your why is to be a safe place for your partner, That changes the way you handle conflict. If your why is to grow together, that changes how you communicate through challenges. Your purpose becomes the compass that guides your choices, especially when things get tough. It also creates alignment, because once you're clear on your why, you stop chasing connections that don't match it. You stop trying to force relationships that aren't in sync with your values. You don't get pulled into dynamics where your worth is measured by how much you sacrifice or how quiet you stay. You choose relationships that match your truth, not just your loneliness. That's the difference between settling and building. Most people get into relationships thinking about what they want to receive: love, attention, validation. And there's nothing wrong with having needs, but the healthiest relationships are built when both people are focused not just on what they're getting, but on what they're contributing. When you come in with a clear why, you bring something meaningful to the table. You're not waiting to be completed, you're already whole and simply choosing to share your life with someone else. Your why also keeps you grounded during the ups and downs. Every relationship will face tension. But if you know why you're there, if you know what you stand for as a partner, you don't get lost in the drama. You stay anchored. You can say, this is who I am, and this is how I want to show up, even when it's hard. That level of self-awareness creates trust, not just with your partner, but within yourself. Think of it this way. In any meaningful journey, clarity is power. If you don't know where you're going or why you're going there, how can you expect to end up in a place that feels good? The same is true in relationships. You need a direction, a reason, a purpose, and that starts from within. So ask yourself, what kind of partner do I want to be? What do I stand for in love? What do I want to bring into someone's life? Because when you lead with purpose, you create a relationship built not just on feelings, but on value, and that's what truly makes it last. In any meaningful relationship, there's a constant exchange, a flow of emotions, energy, and effort. But many people approach relationships like a bank account, making the mistake of focusing only on the withdrawals. They give when they want something in return, they take more than they give. And over time, this imbalance can drain the emotional bank account, leaving both parties feeling exhausted, unappreciated, and disconnected. True connection isn't built on taking, it's built on giving. But not just in big, occasional gestures. It's in the small, everyday deposits that you make. Moments of kindness, support, understanding, and affection. These deposits might seem insignificant on their own, but over time, they create a deep reservoir of goodwill. They strengthen the foundation of your relationship, making it resilient when times get tough. Every time you show up for someone, listen without judgment, or offer a word of encouragement, you're making a deposit. Every time you put their needs above your own, not out of obligation, but out of love and respect, you're adding value to the relationship. These deposits might be as simple as remembering to check in after a stressful day, or making time for the little things that matter to your partner. It could be as small as a compliment or a heartfelt thank you. It's not the grand gestures that keep a relationship afloat. It's the ongoing, everyday acts of care and attention. In contrast, withdrawals are those moments when we take more than we give, when we ask for attention without offering any in return, when we let our partner down or neglect their needs, when we withhold affection, take out our frustrations on them, or fail to listen when they need us most. Every time we focus only on our own desires and needs without considering the other person's, we make a withdrawal. And like any bank account, if we withdraw too much without making enough deposits, we risk depleting the relationship. What makes deposits so powerful is that they don't require immediate reciprocation. A deposit is a gift, not a transaction. You're not doing something for the expectation of getting something back. You're giving because you believe in the relationship, because you care about the other person, and because you want to see them thrive. It's about creating a balance of giving and receiving that feels natural, not forced. And when both partners make regular deposits, the relationship thrives. There's an ease to it, a flow of energy that keeps the connection alive and vibrant. One of the biggest misconceptions in relationships is the idea that love is something that will simply sustain itself, that it will keep going on its own without any effort. But love requires work. It requires attention. It requires intentional acts of kindness, vulnerability, and support. If you stop making deposits, If you stop showing up, if you stop putting effort into the relationship, then over time, the emotional count begins to empty. And when that happens, it's harder to rebuild the trust, the intimacy, and the connection that were once there. To make your relationship better, focus on making deposits, not just withdrawals. Start thinking about the little things you can do each day to show you care. It's not about keeping score. It's about creating a space where both people feel valued, supported, and appreciated. Small deposits made consistently over time lead to a relationship that feels rich, fulfilling, and resilient. Remember, the health of your relationship doesn't depend on occasional grand gestures or big sacrifices. It's the steady, everyday effort that builds a lasting bond. And as you make deposits through love, attention, patience, and kindness, you'll find that your relationship doesn't just survive, it thrives. In any relationship, growth is not optional. It's essential. But growth doesn't happen automatically. It's not something that occurs simply because two people are together. In fact, without intentional effort, relationships tend to stagnate or drift. The choice is clear. You can either grow together or grow apart. And the reality is that if you're not actively growing as a couple, you're likely growing in different directions. The journey of growing together requires mutual commitment, intentionality, and a shared vision for the future. It's about being conscious of how you evolve individually and as a pair. Growth in a relationship isn't just about improving yourself, it's about improving your connection. It's about creating space where both partners can evolve and encourage each other's development. It's about becoming better versions of yourselves, not just in isolation, but in harmony. When we're committed to growing together, we're willing to have tough conversations about what we need, what we want, and where we see the relationship going. We create room for vulnerability because we understand that growth isn't always pretty. It's messy. It requires stepping out of our comfort zones, taking risks, and sometimes confronting uncomfortable truths. But when both partners are open to that kind of growth, they don't just get closer, they become more resilient. Challenges don't tear them apart. They become opportunities to learn, to adapt, and to evolve. Unfortunately, many relationships fall into a pattern of complacency. Partners stop dreaming together, stop setting goals together, and stop working on themselves as individuals and as a team. They settle into routines, and over time, their individual lives grow in different directions. Interests, passions, and goals that were once shared become neglected. Conversations become about logistics, what needs to be done, who's doing what, rather than about ideas, dreams, and ambitions. And slowly, without even realizing it, the connection begins to fade. The problem with growing apart is that it often happens subtly. One day you might realize that you're no longer on the same page, that you've stopped connecting emotionally, or that your needs and desires no longer align. The distance grows, not in big dramatic moments, but in small, unnoticed ways. And once that distance becomes too great, it becomes much harder to bridge. Communication breaks down, misunderstandings arise, and before long it feels like you're living parallel lives instead of sharing one. But the beauty of relationships is that they are dynamic. It's never too late to course correct, to reconnect, and to choose to grow together. The first step is being aware of where you are. Are you continuing to learn and adapt together? Are you still sharing your thoughts, your desires, and your dreams? Or have you settled into a routine where growth is no longer a priority? The key to growing together is constant and conscious effort. It's about setting goals, not just for the relationship, but for your individual lives as well. It's about encouraging each other to reach higher, to be better, and to evolve into the best versions of yourselves. And when one partner is struggling, the other shows up with support, understanding, and a willingness to help them through the hard times. Growth isn't always about making progress. Sometimes it's about holding space for the other person while they catch up or work through challenges. Growing together also means embracing change rather than fearing it. People change over time, and so do relationships. The person you were when you first met your partner isn't the person you are today, and that's okay. What matters is that you both grow in ways that still bring you closer, that still strengthen your connection, that still help you align with each other's visions for the future. So how do you ensure that you're growing together instead of growing apart? It's simple, but not always easy. Stay connected. Stay curious about each other's lives. Continue to invest in your relationship even when life gets busy or difficult. Dream together. Create new experiences together. Don't let the small moments of everyday life distract you from the bigger picture. Constantly ask, are we still growing together? Are we still moving in the same direction? Because at the end of the day, relationships are not about simply surviving, they're about thriving. And the key to thriving together is growth. When you grow together, you build a partnership that is more than just a connection. It becomes a shared journey of transformation and possibility.